Just before noon, Chelsea Potter stood on the corner of Broadway and Liberty Street holding a sheaf of newspapers and offering them to passers-by. "Excuse me," she said to a man in a tan raincoat. "Would you like a copy of the Occupy Wall Street Journal?" Activism update. Some breaks in the blackout of Wall Street protests. After a Fair Action Alert criticized the virtual media blackout of the Occupy Wall Street protests, corporate news coverage has increased. TheGuardian.co.uk asks if you were arrested on the Brooklyn Bridge. And the article goes on to state that the protesters claim they were lured into a trap, with police guiding them onto the traffic lanes on the bridge instead of the elevated pedestrian walkway. When the protesters were about halfway over the bridge, they were prevented by lines of officers from exiting at the Brooklyn side, while police vans brought up the rear. Okay, folks. Of course these peaceful protesters were kettled, a well-known crowd control tactic. There has been some great discussion on this topic, here in the comments section, and we, here, at Get In It for Truth, fully believe that there was no malicious intent in the hearts of the protesters of intentionally blocking roadways, when, in fact, all images and alternative sources point to the fact that people were kettled to a place where they shouldn't be and then arrested for being in that place they shouldn't be. Even in this Fairfax Media article, Dave Walker, page administrator of Facebook for a group affiliated with yesterday's protest on the Brooklyn Bridge, which saw 700 people arrested, and is planning protests in Perth, is even quoted as saying, "I don't believe that there is much point in casting judgments based on information which has gone through the filter of several media outlets," he said. From what I've read briefly, the police once again enforced a strategy of kettling the crowd which has time and time again proven to just provoke violence and achieve nothing. Activist post by Madison Rutherford that touches upon this subject of kettling, as well. It states, "The highly suspicious tactics used by the NYPD were highlighted today when police made a planned move on the protesters, according to the New York Times, which involved bringing in 10 Department of Correction buses capable of holding 20 prisoners each in preparation for a massive crackdown on activists." It becomes quite clear that this was an engineered event when one considers the fact that the NYPD mobilized such a large fleet of buses in anticipation of a round of protesters. When protesters attempted to cross the Brooklyn Bridge on Saturday afternoon, police seemed to guide the protesters onto the roadway, according to a media coordinator for the Occupy Wall Street protest, Jesse Meyerson. Inspired by the anti-corporate Occupy Wall Street demonstrations in New York, several hundred protesters set up camp in front of Los Angeles City Hall this weekend, saying they are there to stay. Saturday night sleep-in followed a march and rally earlier in the day Saturday by a loosely organized group called Occupy Los Angeles. Okay, so, we're pretty sure, here, that it's beginning. The folks, with their wits about them, armed with the truth, and with love, now is your time. Time for street action, and to help as many as you can to do the right things, as best you can. Learn to spot provocateurs and gather help. For those who may not know, an agent provocateur is the well-used tactic of using undercover military or police to join a dissenting group or protest in order to provoke others in the group to carry out illegal actions and violence. The goal is to discredit the group from the inside. Sometimes the group gets discredited with those outside. Learn to quell fear with words. Learn to love and understand that cops, the bulk of them, they are on our side. They just don't know it yet. Use everything you've learned to see the signs and help groups disseminate information within the networks on the street. You, alone, knowing what to observe, could guard against agent provocateurs enticing groups into internal divisions and collapses. Meanwhile, in Boston, police have arrested 24 protesters for trespassing during a demonstration against Bank of America's foreclosure practices at the banking giant's offices in downtown Boston. The Boston Herald reports that the event was an act of civil disobedience that the organizers intended to send a message that the lenders' practices were unfair. Be sure to check out this incredible video that gives great credence to there actually existing this hope in all our hearts. Imagine so many of us locked hand in hand together like this, a wall of solidarity, an unmovable wall, unanimously voted upon. Here's the first official statement from the Occupy Wall Street movement, and we have to agree that at least it's a good start. Now, to get people to turn off their televisions, that's the tricky part. Here's a video that helps to get to the root of what many protesters are looking for from Occupy Wall Street. They are not dirty hippies or uneducated, in the least. Be sure to watch the entire clip at Media Sanctuary on YouTube.
It would just be satisfying just to get one banker arrested, at least one.
Yes.
We will decide.
90% of the people make the money that 1% of the people benefit from. It's not fair. I'd like to see it become a movement that actually, makes some change. Like the anti-war movement in the 70s actually brought the soldiers home and ended the war. I'd like to see the same thing happen. Redistribution of wealth that makes sense for people that need it.
This is what it is. We're fighting for the transition of power of the state to the people. It's so simple.
What is becoming right now is just growing and growing in this consciousness. It's beautiful. I love it. First off, it's grown tenfold. I've never seen this much people in 3 days. And everybody's on the same plane. Everybody's here for the same reason. It doesn't matter. There's so many different walks of life, so many different types of people, and everybody's just on the same plane. So it's beautiful.
I would like to see more people become awake and aware of what's going on. There's white-collar crimes going on. The criminals are in the White House, not on the streets.
I would like to see this movement become results. Change in our economic and foreign policies. Change in the way corporations are associated with politicians. I want to see complete transparency between every transaction between a politician and a lobbyist or corporate representative. It should be illegal for a politician to speak to a corporate representative or a lobbyist without it being recorded and transparent and available to all the public.
Complete change in our democratic process as we know it right now, a la Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine. These guys, they said we had to have a revolution every 20 years. We need to have people who are educated.
I would like to see it become the ultimate freedom of humanity through awareness, love, commitment, responsibility, compassion, dedication, a renaissance of human consciousness that frees us.